What happened with Schenectady? That's our question. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, the Schenectady was a heaven. When I came here for the first time, I came to visit. Okay? And I remember when we walk at 2 o'clock in the morning, I went to the, we don't have cell phone.
Right.
I walked with my son alone to the phone in the fire station to call my husband at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And free. We was like in the heaven in here, 25, 30 years ago. What happened with Schenectady?
I was living here years ago, and I run away from Schenectady because the school, they put it all together because at that time was not a lot of students. So it was a lot of fighting and drugs and all that. And I said, well, I had to go and move. And now I came back and I see Schenectady, terrible. I said, what can change Schenectady? These children around, drugs inside the school. Do you have a plan that something that they can do for?
Well, one of the things is that the police department used to have a police officer dedicated only to, going around and help schools, and that position has had to be cut, for example. So now there's less police or security in some of the school areas than there was even before, like you said. And that's something that certainly Roger's been saying and trying to get more police so you can, reinstitute a program like that to have, a police officer that can, be dedicated to the school areas where, like you said, there's a lot of, just the delinquency and, problems of that kind.
Drugs are the single biggest problem we have, because if you had no drugs, I don't want to say there'd be no crimes, but it'd be dramatically fewer crimes, because drugs trigger shootings and stabbings, gang on gang. They trigger the break-ins as people need money for drugs. So there are all kinds of problems associated with it. That is the biggest thing. The mayor likes to cite statistically that crime was down this year. Well, I don't think anyone feels safer. More importantly, the crimes involving drugs are up 75%. The crimes involving shootings are up more than 75%. And the crimes involving former felons and drugs are up 83%. So we have some real issues that we have to address. My biggest problem is that I think it's impossible to solve a problem until you admit you have one. And right now, maybe because it's an election year, the man I'm running against says everything is fine. It's not fine. You know it's not fine. I know it's not fine. We just have to admit it, and then we can start solving those problems. But what is clear is that crime, in terms of drugs, is our biggest problem. We have had a 74% increase in drug-related felonies in the past year. We have had an 83% increase in repeat offenders involving drugs. The simplest first thing I would do, we have a command center that was given to us during the 9/11 aftermath. How about starting off by parking it on Crane and 6th Street and having a presence there so we can do away with some of the dealers that are there.
Mayor McCarthy, you have 1 minute to respond.
I want to again thank the finance staff for putting this together, Commissioner DeGenova, Mr. Ferrari, John Coluccio, who helped with the graphics that makes us all look good. Schenectady has the lowest crime rates in the Capital District. When I came in 4 years ago, they were actually the highest. When you do the calculations today, crime rates continue to fall here in the city of Schenectady. And if you look at our violent crimes, down 15%, and the property crime is down a little over 30%.
Police are investigating a shooting that happened in broad daylight. It happened at around 2:30 this afternoon near the intersection of Hewlett and Albany Streets. Police say they got a call for shots fired, and when they arrived, they discovered a man with a gunshot wound to the back.
Gunfire came from people in 2 separate cars, and 2 people have been taken to Albany Medical Center.
Where's this?
Schenectady, New York, Mount Pleasant. Unbelievable.
Right after school?
Well, they were at the school driving, but still, you got the middle school and you got children there, you know.
At approximately 12:15, we received a call for a report of shots fired in the area of Craig and Strong Street. Officers responded. Preliminary investigation revealed that there was a pursuit, 2 vehicles through the city. Occupants of both vehicles were exchanging gunfire. As far as we were able to tell, it started somewhere in the area of Emmett Street and Craig Street, proceeded south up Craig, across the bridge, and terminated somewhere in the area of Mount Pleasant Middle School.
Schools have been put into a lockout this afternoon, result of a gunfight right near an elementary school and Mount Pleasant Middle School.
This is where police say earlier today, 2 cars came barreling down that street in a run and gun battle. Police say the 2 cars were actually exchanging gunfire as they were driving along the street. A very scary scene that actually played out right in front of 2 Schenectady schools. Police did say 2 people showed up at Ellis Hospital about 20 minutes after the 911 call with gunshot wounds to the torso. Police say they were stabilized and moved to Albany Medical Center. Police saying because of the chaotic nature of the gun battle, this could have been much worse.
There was a pursuit of 2 vehicles through the city. Occupants of both vehicles were exchanging gunfire.
Well, Schenectady man is dead after a shooting on Parkwood Boulevard around 1:30 this morning. Police are currently searching for 2 suspects.
Police responded to Parkwood Boulevard just before 1:30 this morning for a report of a shooting. When they got there, they found 25-year-old Wayne Best shot twice in the upper body laying in the street. He was taken to Ellis Hospital where he died. A friend of Best who didn't want to go on camera says he has known him since the 6th grade and that it's crazy that Best was killed this way. He says Best didn't have problems with anyone and doesn't know why he would have been killed.
A horrifying scene captured on camera. You see the victim, believed to be in his 20s, walking east on Albany Street when suddenly he is shot twice, once in the leg and once in the hip, eventually collapsing and trying to crawl to the curb.
Bishop, a suspect opens fire along a busy street in Schenectady. Car windows were shot out and bullets grazed homes and porches.
Witnesses tell me a man just started shooting as he was walking down Albany Street around 2 o'clock this afternoon.
It makes me sick. It makes me sick. I thank God that there were no children out, that my nephews weren't outside, that usually there's kids here, there's a lot of kids.
Thankfully, she says, the bullets hit their cars instead.
It's the way it is around here. This is not the first shooting over here. This is probably the 3rd or 4th shooting right along on this block.
And that's why tonight she's staying with Sue. Long term, she's let her landlord know she's leaving.
I can't keep going on dealing with stuff like this and having a chance that one of my kids get hit.
You're going to hit kids. You're going to hit babies. You know, my mother's 86 years old. God forbid if one of them would have went through the living room couch and hit my mother.
This local hip-hop artist who also lives in the neighborhood spent 10 years behind bars for gun crimes. He now works with young men in Schenectady trying to keep them away from guns and gang life. He thinks the city and the police department need to try a different approach.
Right now, police are on the scene of a fatal stabbing on Van Branken Avenue.
The road is still shut down here on Van Branken and Wood Avenue. Cars are not allowed to travel in this area, and they have a very wide perimeter taped off here. Again, we are still trying to get more details on exactly how this happened, but we do know that a man did die from his injuries, stabbed in the torso multiple times.
Now to a developing story out of Schenectady where police are on the hunt for whoever opened fire inside an apartment about 2 hours ago.
Police say multiple shots were fired here outside 832 Bridge Street in Schenectady about 7:15 Monday evening.
Upon arrival, officers located one male who had been shot.
Police say they believe the shooting happened outside. When officers found the male victim, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Another person was found in the same area suffering from multiple
Schenectady
stab.
police are investigating a shooting that sent 2 people to the hospital. They tell us it happened along State Street just after 11 last night. Police say they got a call from one of the victims who said he was shot in the hand. His girlfriend was shot in the abdomen. They went to Albany Medical Center. No word on the woman's condition, and so far, no reports of anyone being arrested, nor even...
ABC's Lisa Martone, we are following the latest developments on a violent situation out of Schenectady.
That's right. There is a car in the parking lot that was involved in the shooting. That's being towed right now. Now, they tell us a victim was located in the area of Forest Road with a gunshot wound to the upper body.
News out of Schenectady right now. We've just learned that the victim of an overnight shooting has died from his injuries, and police are on the hunt for whoever's responsible.
Released the name of the woman murdered yesterday. She's identified as 43-year-old Tammy Washington. She was stabbed at Clinton Street near State, and police say they found her in a parking lot behind Bank of America.
Still staying on top of developing news out of Schenectady, police have identified the victim, who was shot and killed overnight as 18-year-old Kusan Tolliver of Schenectady, in an area that has seen a lot of violence over the past few weeks.
He was shot and killed on the 500 block of Schenectady Street around 10 last night. When officers arrived at the scene, they found Tolliver shot in the upper body. Tolliver was then transported to Ellis Hospital, where he later died from his injuries. The same block where another man was shot last Thursday. While that victim suffered life-threatening injuries, police still have not found the shooter. Both incidents were just blocks from another shooting last month, where 19-year-old LaShawn Gauze was shot and killed on Albany Street on June 29th. And police still have yet to make any arrests for that incident as concerning, especially with these incidents happening in a neighborhood and near the city park.
Enough is enough. That's the feeling in Schenectady tonight after another shooting. This one right outside an elementary school. Residents of the Mount Pleasant neighborhood are fed up.
They desperately want to turn the neighborhood around.
Neighbors along Webster Street here in Schenectady describe hearing one shot and then hearing a car speed away. It also happened within feet of an elementary school, and that has many people who live in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood saying enough is enough.
It's terrible, man. I mean, kids go to school here. As of right now, don't nobody want to say nothing because everybody's scared, everybody's shook.
Living in fear and living in an area of Schenectady that has been riddled with violence for some time.
They say when officers arrived, they found a man shot in the torso. Some of his clothing still lying in the street. This happened just across the street from the Hamilton Elementary School, down the block from a Boys and Girls Club.
That's disturbing, to say the least. To say the very least.
Elwin Waller lives down the block from where the shooting occurred. The father of four says he heard the gunshot but thought it was his children playing. But he, like many in this community, tell me they're not surprised by the violence.
You got people who won't get mad at each other, they don't have problems, and since they can't fight it out, they're going to punk it out and shoot somebody. It sucks that it has to be that way.
Why wouldn't you think of the kids when there's a school in your peripheral vision?
It's the people in this tight-knit community that need to start saying something, because what if that was your kid?
This used to be a really nice place. It's called Mount Pleasant. Why can't it be Pleasant again?
Now in Schenectady, investigating yet another homicide there. A man shot on First Street near Zade's Market. Police were on the scene at Albany Street throughout the night and into the morning.
Approximately 11:12 last night, we received calls for shots fired in the area of Zade's Food Market. Found a male victim inside the store with a gunshot wound to his chest.
The person shot was transported to Ellis ER, where he was later pronounced dead. Employees of Zade Food Mart woke up to their windows shattered from the shooting. There was another shooting in recent weeks where someone died a couple blocks from here. A Schenectady resident of 15 years says she needs to get away from the violence.
Since I've lived here, it's been a lot of bad things happening. I'm moving because I don't want to be in this environment. You know what I'm saying? And I'm coming from the Bronx and Brooklyn. You know, so I came up here to have a better life.
It's inside this home where police say a man was hit over the head with a shovel and then buried in the basement under debris.
And they tell us it happened at the hands of his own neighbor, 44-year-old Harold Ortiz. He's been charged with attempted murder.
He was in this basement covered in debris for 2 or 3 days. He says he doesn't remember being hit in the head or what it was like in the basement.
Buried near him, the remains of his neighbor, 55-year-old Valerie Washington. The male victim explaining she was a kind, friendly woman who went to church every Sunday.
You helped with the graphics, makes us all look good.
I think we have an obligation to help people in this community. But I think we have another obligation to the people of this community, and that is not to become a magnet for people to come here to be helped. So we have had two things that have triggered the influx of people who in many cases are desirable, but in other cases less so. One is the fact that housing is much lower in cost here. Remember, the housing that's here was built for a city of 100,000, and we now have a population of 66,000. So we have more housing than we have people, and that means one of two things. You'll have vacant buildings that are going to be places where crimes can take place, especially drugs, and you have people who are going to try and unload properties through lower rents. So you're going to draw more people in. If one is on welfare, the welfare check is the same in New York City as it is in Schenectady. It just goes much further in Schenectady than it does in New York City. So if you have, one, a crackdown in crime in New York City, two, you have people who are having a hard time making it work for themselves in New York, they seek another opportunity, and that's Schenectady, where that dollar goes further. And we have an obligation to help people who are here, but we should not end up being a magnet to draw more people in than we have to help. If one is going to change the culture in this city, one starts with small things first. If we can have a zero-tolerance type approach, where we end up doing away with littering and loitering, if we send a different message to people here in the city, I think we start down the road to changing the culture. The way I think we can do that is to change the legislation so that police officers can ticket people as opposed to taking them downtown and spending too much time with the paperwork.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Property taxes come down when the tax base grows and when people want to invest in the city, when there's greater demand. That demand will come about when crime goes down and people feel safe, when people believe that their children will get the education that they want in school, and when the neighborhoods in which they live are brought back. We have lost $750 million of your wealth in the last 4 years. $664 million have evaporated. To bring it back, we need to take, I think, bold, not incremental action. That's what I'm proposing.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Is your home worth more than it was 4 years ago? Do you feel safer than 4 years ago? Do you believe your schools are better than 4 years ago? Are your roads better and less potholed than 4 years ago? Are your neighborhoods better than 4 years ago? And are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Okay, let's let him conclude.
If the answer to those questions is no, then I ask for your support to end cronyism in City Hall and work together with me to bring the city together in a fair, honest, and open way. And if the answer to that question, series of questions, is no, I ask for your vote on November 3. Thank you.